Alfred Hitchcock, one of cinema's most influential directors, got his humble start in Leytonstone, London, in the United Kingdom on August 1899. Now, over 115 years later, Hitchcock is still one of the most influential directors Hollywood has ever seen. From the bloody shower scene in Psycho, to the claustrophobic element of Rear Window, to his musical accompaniment and his impact on society, Hitchcock is the master of suspense. Before Hitchcock emerged as a director, horror movies and TV were very different. Suspense came from what the audience didn't know, not what they did. Hitchcock's use of dramatic irony changed audience experience. In shows before Hitchcock's era, directors relied on established suspense techniques. An example of this is the Dummy episode from The Twilight Zone. This episode reflects a traditional method of throwing the audience. At a climactic point in the show, the evil doll's head gets smashed, and the audience thinks it's over. But then the viewer finds there's still 10 minutes left, and the doll is still alive and menacing. Similarly, prior to Hitchcock's era, the characters were standard at the time. Damsels in distress, innocent old ladies, and pure evil, larger-than-life villains. These villains were often magical or supernatural, like the creature from the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein. However, when Alfred Hitchcock started making a name for himself, he completely changed horror using unprecedented methods that are standard today. While all of Hitchcock's films are unique, they always have some of the following styles and techniques, which are now staples of the genre. One of the ways Hitchcock changed film is through his use of dramatic music. Sound movies or talkies were introduced in 1927. Hitchcock was already well into his career when sound was created, but he quickly mastered the art with help of composer Bernard Herrmann. He would lower and increase music volume in order to heighten the tension. One of his most memorable soundtracks was from the movie Psycho. In the famous shower scene, the violent sawing on the violin creates fear and suspense. The musical arrangement inspired many other horror movie soundtracks. Listen to the music from the shower scene. Psycho was the first movie to employ music as a character that enhanced the tension of the scene. Directors of modern movies constantly use this technique, as demonstrated by these arrangements. George Lucas used it in Star Wars, and it was used in Jaws. Hitchcock was also the master of suspense with his use of dramatic irony. Dramatic irony occurs when the audience knows something the characters do not. Hitchcock was once quoted saying, "The audience is longing to warn the characters on the screen. You shouldn't be talking about such trivial matters. There's a bomb beneath you and it's about to explode." Hitchcock used dramatic irony in many of his movies. In Psycho, he had the killer sneaking up on the girl. In Rear Window, the murderous husband returns home with the protagonist's girlfriend still inside. Today, the same technique is practiced in many films. In the movie Silence of the Lambs, during the night vision scene, the audience knows the killer is watching the girl, even though she doesn't. Also, in the movie Misery, dramatic irony is evident as the audience bears witness as the villain prepares to hobble the protagonist.
Please don't do it.
Both of these suspenseful scenes were heavily influenced by Hitchcock's original use of dramatic irony. Alfred Hitchcock also altered the horror genre with his use of characters and their perspectives that were different from societal norms. Instead of creating women who were sweet and innocent, he explored the concept of making female characters sneaky and nefarious, like the feminine lead in Psycho who steals a package of $100 bills. A modern example of this is M. Night Shyamalan's film, The Visit. Shyamalan takes a weak and feeble-minded grandma and makes her look dangerous. Also common in Hitchcock movies are the treacherous mothers. He often portrayed mothers or mother figures as crazy, overprotective femme fatales, like the nanny from his film Rebecca. She demonstrates throughout the movie a bitter hate for the stepwife, the main and likable character. Modern movies such as Throw Mama from the Train and Carrie both illustrate psychotic mothers who belittle and psychologically scar their children. The use of these character types has now become staples of horror and suspense films, which were inspired by Hitchcock. In his efforts to have artistic freedom, Hitchcock encountered a reluctance from some people to show overly graphic scenes. However, Hitchcock was very clever at manipulating scenes so that they remain in the film. In Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock didn't actually film Loris Thorwald assaulting the female character. He implied it through a use of sound over black lighting to prevent people from being overly offended. One of his most memorable ways he avoided censorship is shown in the scene from North by Northwest. Two characters are kissing and then it cuts to a train going through a tunnel to symbolize sex. Hitchcock's creative methods for avoiding censorship opened the way for many films to progressively increase shocking sex and violent images. There are some people who claim that Hitchcock's exploration of increased sexuality and violence had a negative effect not only on the film industry but on our culture as well. It is claimed that Hitchcock's films contributed to a growing tolerance in society on our values regarding violence, sexual content, and crude references.
Hitchcock really changed society in regards to what was acceptable, the boundaries for storytelling for motion pictures. He dealt with a lot of subject matter that was taboo. We were talking about murder, which isn't exactly the most...
Psycho was even blamed in court for being the cause of a number of horrible murders. This encouraged a debate about the association between screen violence and antisocial behavior that continued to this day. Many have also argued that Hitchcock was merely exploring, through the use of cinema, the beliefs and the fears he encountered in that time period. In his film Rope and Strangers on a Train, the villains are homosexuals. This representation of homosexuals was common belief in the 50s and 60s, as demonstrated by the 1961 documentary Boys Beware. The documentary warns young boys of homosexuals, describing them as pedophiles and violent criminals. The movie Blackmail focused on rape, with the victim killing her assaulter and being blackmailed for it. During Hitchcock's career, America's rape and homicide rates drastically increased. Hitchcock was also blamed for the psychological scarring in the youth. One woman wrote to Hitchcock complaining that her daughter would not shower or bathe. Refusing to take the blame, Hitchcock's response was, "Have her dry cleaned." This mother was not the only one who complained, as Hitchcock was blamed for the decline in shower curtain sales and motel bookings because movies like Psycho made these things terrifying. Around the time Hitchcock made Psycho, the FDA approved the birth control pill. This, combined with the Women's Liberation Act, largely changed women's roles in society. In Psycho, Hitchcock has a woman having sex even though she isn't legally married. It is argued that Hitchcock chose these themes and character types to capitalize on society's discomfort with the changes to heighten audiences' tension at the time. Nevertheless, by introducing controversial topics to mainstream cinema, Hitchcock opened the lines of conversation. Today it is commonplace to discuss homosexuality and women's rights, in part because Hitchcock presented them in his movies and made them less taboo. Hitchcock's influence within the horror genre is recognized even today. He is one of the first auteur directors, which means filmmaker whose personal influence and artistic control over the movie are so great that the filmmaker is regarded as the author of the movie.
He was the first real celebrity filmmaker, and so back in the day you didn't really know who made movies, but he put an imprint on all the films he did. He was a true artist.
Many directors state that Hitchcock inspired them. Steven Spielberg said that he was a huge fan of Hitchcock, calling him his idol. When he was making Jaws, Spielberg was faced with filming a terrifying scene without showing the actual antagonist. "I had no choice but to figure out how to tell the story without the shark," Spielberg said, "so I just went back to Alfred Hitchcock. What would Hitchcock do in a situation like this? It is what you don't see that is truly frightening." His movies have also been satirized and copied repeatedly in television and movies. The Simpsons recreated the movie Rear Window by putting Bart in the same place as the main character, witnessing a murder through his bedroom window. The movie High Anxiety was director Mel Brooks' comedy tribute to Alfred Hitchcock. In the film, he satirized many of Hitchcock's films after asking Hitchcock personally for permission. After more than 115 years, Alfred Hitchcock's memorable music, nail-biting suspense, strange characters, and sneaky innuendos are still admired and duplicated. Alfred Hitchcock truly was, and forever will be, the master of suspense.
That was beautifully put. In fact, after hearing that, there's nothing more I wish to add. So, good night until next week.